Director of Admission at SCAD, aka the Savannah College of Art and Design. And I'm so excited to be able to share a little bit about SCAD with you this morning in partnership with Madam Borno. And also, we have a special guest of the university today. So, just to give you a little idea, the Savannah College of Art and Design, we have 40 plus programs in everything art and design, and we are located in the United States in Atlanta, Georgia, and Savannah, Georgia. We also have online learning. I know you're all thrilled about online options, but we've been doing it since 2003. So we kind of knew this brave new digital world was coming. I'm excited that we're kind of here to meet a lot of you today in this format. So today we're going to be talking about specifically some tips on portfolio preparation. But before I get into that, I wanted to let you know about an amazing scholarship opportunity that is coming to a deadline at the 15th of Feb. So you have about a little less than a week to get through this process, but it's not too much work, okay? So this is called the SCAD Challenge. The SCAD Challenge is a scholarship competition. Submit one work for judgment. You should also submit your transcripts. This is open to what we call juniors and seniors in the United States. So that's years 11 and 12 on American system. And if you are in British system, years 12 and 13, okay? So the SCAD Challenge has three prizes of $4,000, $3,000, and $2,000 US dollars. These scholarships can stack on top of what you might earn if you go through the admission process in terms of your academic and your full portfolio. So if you're a junior, you can be submitting already, potentially earning some scholarship, right, for your future admission at SCAD. So we're going to see some examples of past winners of the SCAD Challenge today. And if you have any queries, feel free to follow up with me. I'm going to put my information in the chat. And if there's anything left that, any stone left unturned, then feel free to also speak with Madam Borno and just say, hey, can you help me meet that guy from SCAD? And, she will definitely help with that. So I'm really pleased to be able to introduce Will O'Donnell today. So Will is the Director of Training and Development at SCAD, and he also works with our portfolio review team. And Will has 2 degrees from SCAD in sequential art and as well as design management. So he has a lot of wisdom to share on creating your portfolio, especially a portfolio for SCAD, but these tips should be really applicable to a lot of what you guys will be going through. And without further ado, thank you so much, Will.
Thank you for that wonderful intro, Robert. I really appreciate it. Wonderful to be here today to be able to speak with you all. I had a great SCAD experience. Actually did the pre-college program called Rising Star in my grade 11 year in the U.S. schedule, and fell in love with the university, came back, did my undergraduate degree, and liked it so much that after a career in teaching and comics, I decided to come back again and be a part of it to get my master's. So I'm very pleased and privileged and honored to be here with you all today. We're going to talk about your portfolio. The portfolio is something that is not required for admission to SCAD, but it is for scholarship and a considerable amount of scholarship. So this will be able to help you in preparing your portfolio for SCAD, but these are great techniques and tips to apply to any type of art. And as we all know, a portfolio is not something that just ends when you go to college. You continue to edit and create and kind of grow your portfolio from now until the end of your artistic career. So when we look at a successful piece of work, and I'm going to look at it through the lens of the SCAD portfolio, we have 3 main elements. So if you think about it like a pie, okay, a circular pie. 25% or a quarter of that pie is going to be the presentation. It's the work. Is it thoughtfully prepared? Is it cropped? Is your work being shown in its best possible way? And so that's taking the time and respecting your work and respecting yourself enough to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward, basically. That other 25% of the pie, and another quarter of it is technique. And these are the things that you've been learning when you've been studying art ever since you were little kids. This is the elements and principles of art. Things like line and value scale and composition. Things on the design side like emphasis and movement and balance. These are all important elements in the building blocks of art. So presentation and technique are 50% of that pie. Okay. The other 50% of the pie is your creativity, your creative voice. Art is an elevated form of communication. How are you taking your artwork, and saying something, telling a story, putting your emotions out there, and communicating with the world? And that's the beauty of art. And in that creativity, there's also originality. So, don't just do a picture of Spider-Man that you pulled off the internet. Make your own superhero. Okay, to give you just a kind of a nerdy example, since I'm a comic book guy, and I put plagiarism in here. This is something to actually avoid. That is not a part of the pie. So plagiarism is something that does happen. You just have to be very careful. If you take a resource from the internet and use it, some people do like to copy pictures and things like that, and that's okay. Not as creative or original, but still allowed. You want to give credit to the original artist. So, I'll talk about how to cite your work if if you've borrowed resources from another place. Now, if you're inspired, simply just putting in there like I'm inspired by Van Gogh. That's totally fine. We actually had a student that did a version of Starry Night with spaghetti and meatballs, which I thought was pretty original and pretty creative. He didn't actually exactly copy Starry Night and used a very different and creative kind of take on Van Gogh's work. So that is something that you can do, and then just mention that I was inspired by Van Gogh. Okay, so let's launch into this, and I'm happy to show you some examples of some award-winning student work. As Robert mentioned, we have this contest called the SCAD Challenge, where you can every quarter, or for every year that you're a student here at SCAD, raise your portfolio scholarship by those amounts, so up to $4,000 per year, which can be a pretty sizable amount after 4 years, which is pretty exciting. So I'll show you some of that work, and make sure that you enter the SCAD challenge. The deadline is coming up on February 15th. So let's talk about the first piece of the pie, that 25% piece. This is preparation. So this is taking the time and care to put your portfolio in the best possible light to be reviewed. What I tell students is bring together a collection of work that you would be proud to put in a gallery. So the work needs to be elevated, even if it's your sketches and things like that. Make sure they're cropped properly. Don't see the binder rings and things like that. Whenever possible, you should try to scan the pictures. I know that we may not all have the luxury of having a FedEx Kinko's or an Office Max or a place where we can go, and a print shop where we can go and get things scanned. But if you do have that available to you, you absolutely should take advantage of it. The scanned image has much more resolution. It allows us as reviewers to be able to zoom in or zoom out and see your brush strokes and your line work. We want to use higher resolution photos, hence the scanning. If you can't scan it, put the piece up, especially if it's a 2D piece like a large painting. Put it up on the wall, or have set up leaning against something, but make sure you take the picture straight on. And then if you have outside light sources, they're at a 45-degree angle pointing towards the work, and that'll help to reduce glare, to reduce shadow, if you do have to wind up creating a photo shoot for your artwork. crop your images appropriately. So this is a big thing that we see quite a bit, that you can absolutely avoid getting a lower score by, making sure that your images are cropped all the way to the edge of the picture plane. So if you look at me right now, there's a big white wall behind me, and on the other side is a really messy office. So I'm glad the camera's not turned around. But if I was going to take a picture against that messy office side, I would want to crop it all the way to the edge of the picture. And I, as a reviewer, have seen the floor of people's houses, the background of a messy art room, and everything else that could have really been avoided by cropping properly. Make sure you rotate your images properly. I don't want to have to kind of do this to look at your artwork. It's not meant to be seen that way. So, we're in the modern era now where we can crop things and rotate them properly on our phones. And Slide Room, which is the program that we use to upload the work, is very user friendly. So if you have a problem with Slide Room, you can just go through their support system to get things fixed. Provide a brief description. This is very important. I'll give you a great example. I had a student from Korea, from Seoul, who produced a piece that was absolutely beautiful, and it was kind of like a modern take on Hokusai's wave, inspired by Hokusai, but not the actual wave. And when I looked at it, initially it just looked like a really beautiful acrylic painting. And then I looked a little bit closer, and in the description it said, "Please look under the foam and the wave." And so I zoomed in, and it is actually sculpted. The wave was actually sculpted with matte medium paste, and then a tiny window was crafted inside the wave, and a tiny person kind of looking out, going like this. And I was just my mind was blown. It was amazing. And I would have maybe not seen that if the student hadn't have put that information into the comment box there in Slide Room. So don't forget, if you have any details that you really want us to focus on, please let us know in that little comment box, or any information that's important. You don't want to write a novel in there. You don't want to write a lot, but a paragraph of information can go a long way there. And last but not least, I talked about the plagiarism. Please just cite any of the resources that you appropriate. Appropriate is like blatantly using something. Andy Warhol is a great example. He used other people's pictures and made them into his own paintings. If you were going to do that, if you're going to take something from Google Images and copy it, you just want to make sure and cite the resource that you used, okay? And give credit to the original artist. All right. Let's talk about another 25% piece of the pie. This is technique. Now, this is something you've been learning ever since you were very young. In kindergarten, when you first started to draw shapes, all the way up to now where you're in these advanced classes. Maybe you're in an IB art class, and you're learning about the subtle nuances of building a portfolio and a collection. So these are things like the elements and principles of art. You can find them online everywhere. When I was an art teacher, working with secondary and primary students, I was actually very versed within the elements and principles of art. So these are simple things like unique composition. Right now, I'm in the middle of my composition in my little picture that you see me in. But if I were to move more to the left and create a lot of negative space to the right, that would create a little bit of interest, a little bit of unbalance in the picture plane. So think about that as you're preparing your work. You want to have a unique composition, not something that's just basic and central, something that is inspiring, exciting, something that helps to enhance the picture. Okay, color balance and value scale are also very important. Okay, and yeah, so you have to use your mind's eye to imagine me being in the middle. But when you use color balance and value scale, and I'll show you in a few of these pieces later on, it actually, it makes all of the difference, and it actually can create things like emphasis. It can create movement in your piece. It can create temperature. The rule of 75-25, again, most artistic pieces are either 75% dark and 25% light in their color usage, or it's the reverse. It's 75% light and 25% dark. Take a look at any of your pictures that you've produced in the past, and they'll kind of fall into that category. So it's sort of neat, and it's a rule that came out in the Renaissance. A knowledge of perspective and anatomy. It's not required, But, if you have done some life drawing and, or you have drawn some buildings and you've learned about 1 point or 2 point perspective, this can really help to enhance your work to make it believable. There's another kind of perspective too that we also look for, and that's aerial perspective. So this is less about, points and the horizon line and more about how things get lighter the farther they get away from us. So when you think about aerial perspective, I think about Da Vinci's Madonna of the Rocks. Okay, so in the foreground we have this beautiful, Madonna and baby, and these really detailed rocks and craggy areas near the ocean. And then the farther back we go, the more misty and lighter it gets, and that's because there are more and more air particles between us and things in front of us, and that is a little something we call depth of field. So, as you see things farther and farther away, some of you are in a place where you can see mountains in the distance and they look kind of blue or white. That's actually because air particles, hydrogen and oxygen particles, carry a bluish tint to them. So the farther away things seem, the more blue that they seem, that's the more particles of air that are between us and them. And that's a branch of physics called optics, which I can go on about for days, but I won't. You can come to SCAD and learn about it. So the emphasis is also something that's really important in a piece, and I'll show you several ways that you can create emphasis in your artwork as well. So the other half of the pie, so this is actually a bigger half, so this is really important for getting a high score in your portfolio. It's good that it's presented properly. It's good that it is, that is following the elements and principles, the rules of art. But even beyond that, it needs to be creative. It needs to be original. You're not going to put pictures of still life, a bowl of fruit into your lifetime exhibition. So I always tell students, like, pretend like you've been given a gallery space at the Louvre to put up your very best work from your career so far. You wouldn't put your sketches and your, just your class work and project work in there. You would put your very, very, very best creative original artwork in there. So that's something to think about when preparing a portfolio for SCAD. Now, every university is different, but for us, we want to see only your very best work. So each piece that you produce is encouraged to be original. It's encouraged to come from you as much as possible, even if it's, I really copied a picture, but is that picture original? Did you take that picture and then draw it or then paint it? So that's something to think about. You want to keep it as original as possible. And even if you are using pre-existing subject matter, like let's say I love Wolverine, I've done 100,000 pictures of Wolverine over the years, but I draw him in a way that's unique to me and to my style. Okay, so try to stay true to your style, a stylized version of pre-existing characters if you choose to do that, and then give credit to the creators of those characters. Do not copy pre-existing work if you don't have to. I know sometimes a majority of what you've done to this point has been using the grid and copying things verbatim, but now you have those skills. What are you going to do with them? What are you going to say with your creative work? That's what we're looking for. So successful pieces, they tell a story, they have a narrative, they have a purpose, or they evoke an emotional response. We want to make you feel something. We want to make the viewer feel something, and to connect, or feelings are not just happy and, oh, I love this. It may be revulsion, like, oh, this is gross, or, oh, I really don't like this. And that's still evoking a response, which is making it a successful piece of artwork. So, and the last little point here is actually probably the most salient of all of these points is, ask yourself, especially if you're producing things like photography, does this picture evoke an intellectual reaction, which means, does it make you think? And then also, maybe, does it tell a story? The old saying in the U.S. is, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Does this picture speak 1,000 words, or is it just the beach? So you have to kind of ask yourself those questions. Okay, so that's the pie. Now what I'm going to do is show you some examples of some award-winning artwork in these different categories. And when you produce a visual art portfolio for us, it's just one of a few categories that you have, and I'll show you all the categories at the end here. But the visual art portfolio could be drawing, could be painting, could be photography, sculpture, specifically could be fashion design or architecture, could be graphic design. It's anything visual that you can see that is not animated or moving. Okay. So that's a good definition to have before we go into this. So this is a really great example of a brilliant, brilliant digital illustration. We're receiving more and more digital illustrations nowadays. One of the first things that you notice is that these two characters compositionally are central. So the artist needed to do something to make it less boring because central compositions are the most common compositions. So she actually added this golden disc behind the two boys, and it has drawn emphasis. So with the highest value contrast, if you close your eyes and you open your eyes, you see, like, you look at them first, in the highest value contrast is their hats against that golden disc. And so that's by design. She's created emphasis in the piece for us to look, a place for our eye to start. And then once we look at that area, we see some really, really excellent characterization where these two boys are, kind of looking off to the left, and they're a little bit shocked or confused. And so now I want to know what they're looking at. So it's created intellectual interest in me. So this is also something that's very important. You look at the really nice, beautiful handling of the details of their fabric, the great shading, the great use of color to define depth and form. If you were to zoom in really closely, you could see that the shadows are actually cool colors and the highlights are warm colors. So they have a knowledge of the color wheel, and just a really excellent piece. And also, this is not from our time. Those of you who are familiar with baseball, or maybe not, in America, this is back 40 years ago when I was a kid. This is what we wore. We wore these trucker caps and our blue jeans and a t-shirt instead of a full Under Armour baseball uniform. So I think it's just interesting. It's vintage. It has a lot of good things going for it, and it won the 2019 2D Design Challenge. So we have a lot of different SCAD challenges in a lot of different fields. Now, this was last year's winner. It's completely different than the last piece. So we're not just picking each piece based on it, okay, it looks like this, I'm going to make it and I'm going to produce it to look just like this. This is Shannon Lee, and this is actually a little bit of multimedia here. And this person, who I'm assuming is Shannon, is kind of unraveling, and we have elements of paint here, we have elements of origami, different textures, different media being used, and she's sort of unraveling and sort of kind of expressing what it's like to be a teenager sometimes. I think a lot of us could probably relate to that. But you can see how beautiful this is. It's got the great 75-25 that we talked about. It's got the great use of media. So much, she's such an expert with the media that she can now be expressive with it. Now, I mentioned, still lifes that are kind of boring, or, just your life drawing sketches aren't exactly exciting. So when you choose subject matter for still life, it could be very, very interesting. Now, Selena Zhang, she came in second in 2019, and this was a still life. Now, this kind of is scary and maybe a little gross. These are, scientifically cataloged dead crows. But look at the beauty in it. We have this beautiful like line work. We have this beautiful like contour shading. Great use of the media of charcoal. She's used watercolor to stain the paper. So even in this repulsion, there is some beauty, and there's some excellent craftsmanship here. So if you choose to do a bowl of fruit, that's great. You're going to be one of 4 million bowls of fruit that we'll see in a year. But if you choose something that's truly unique, that creates a reaction, whether it's a loving, warm reaction or a kind of a gross reaction here, it's going to create a response, and it's going to give the reviewer a chance to kind of pause and say, like, this is interesting, and ask questions. If you can make people ask questions, then you've been successful with your artwork. Now, photography, some of you are photographers, and that's also an acceptable form. There are a lot of things that this has going right for it, this picture. And it's two girls, look like they're in sort of fancy dinner dress, maybe going to the prom or something like that. And they're standing in front of the headlights of a car. And the only thing that it's illumined is their silhouettes and an old gravel road and nothing else, and everything is pitch black. Well, this is designed to create some anxiety in the viewer. Why are these people on a abandoned road in the middle of the night? Why are they dressed up? Why are they, where are they? It's meant to kind of create some unease, and it's also very beautiful. And it's an exploration of texture, of organic forms, and man-made forms. And so it's a very successful piece. And interesting and exciting, and makes us ask questions. So there's that intrigue that we talked about. Now, this piece is more beautiful for a very simplistic way. This is a beautiful texture piece. So here we see, this is an overhead shot of a canoe. First of all, without a drone or like a mountain climber with a camera, it's going to be very hard to get this shot. And so when you take pictures or you select a piece of photography, think about, is this something that I could just walk up and see with my own eyes? Or is this something where I'd have to like scale a mountain or be a bird to see? So be careful in your photography. Don't hurt yourself or anything, but definitely look for those shots that are not the norm, something that I couldn't just walk up and see. The other beautiful thing is look really closely at the water. You can see the beautiful ripples that the paddle is making, the great natural texture of the flow of the current under the water. So we kind of see that juxtaposition of man-made with that steel canoe versus nature. And it's just really, really, really perfect. It's a nice 75-25, where the 75% is dark now and the 25% is light. So again, it checks a lot of those boxes that we talked about. This is another one. Again, 75-25. This time it's warm and cool. It's color temperature. It's 75% cool, 25% warm. The emphasis is clearly on the buoy in the inner tube there. We've got a nice thing called repeating motif, where we've got these different squares in the water, and they are leading our eye to the point of emphasis as well as the color. So again, it's very clear, it's very austere. When you're selecting photography, if you have photography that kind of matches this sort of this sort of style, where it's beautiful, vibrant color and color contrast, and then you're also having an interesting composition. So he's sort of off to the right and not right in the center. It really makes for a successful piece. It makes us stop and look at it and ask questions. Now, some of you are sculptors. This is actually a metal chair created by a student who is a welder, and it was inspired by roller coasters. So you can kind of see in the background there, the chair is not level. It's not. It's actually set at a kind of an odd sort of angle. So the person who sits in it is already going to kind of feel like their gravity is compromised a little bit. And then, of course, the tracks of the roller coaster, which makes up the back of the chair, sort of break apart and kind of become more cubist towards the top there. That's just a really interesting thing. And then look at the way that it was filmed. Is this chair in a messy art room? No. Is it in your bedroom with all kinds of other stuff in the background to be distracting? Absolutely not. This is professionally filmed. So this is actually against a really muted backdrop with good lighting, not overly bright, so my eye isn't taken away from where it needs to be. So that's a good thing to point out there too. This is Beowulf, the Viking champion, I guess, or Old English champion. And so Beowulf in this particular picture, the artist has taken the time to meticulously craft that braid and the shoulder pad and all these different details. So I like to pick this piece to show you a way to lay out a slide in your portfolio. We've got that one really epic low angle hero shot, and then we've got some other like turnarounds so that we can see the piece in the round if it was meant to be seen that way. That's why I like to choose that one. Graphic design might be also something that you decide to follow and enter in that particular category. The reason why I love this, color balance. When you think about complementary colors on the color wheel, blue and orange, red and green, purple, violet, I guess is what we're supposed to call it, and yellow. These are complementary colors. So the artist has used a good balance of 75-25 complementary colors to make us feel happy. And also in the way that they've organized and arranged everything. Graphic design, so much of graphic design is organization and arrangement, selecting the proper text or typography. So this one was really successful, and so was this one. This one is very austere. We've got that red and white contrast, and this is actually a wood cutting festival that is in Seattle that happens annually. And if you look really closely, Seattle's, if you're not familiar, it's a city in the U.S. with the Space Needle, which is a really giant tower that was built back in the 1960s. So if you look at the skyline here and you see the Space Needle up about 3/4 of the way towards the tip of the saw, it's the outline of the city skyline of Seattle. So it's a very interesting visual solution. That's what we're looking for graphic design, something that stands out and is different. Fashion may be your thing. This is branding, at its finest. This is a fashion line that a student created, and then the way that she shows it, every one of these pictures look like they go together, look like they're all part of a similar photo shoot, and is the kind of brand that the student is trying to portray. And this next slide, you'll see a completely different type of branding. This is actually more of a portfolio that you may be accustomed to seeing. This is Yu Lu. She's from China, and this is a fashion portfolio that would be considered a professional fashion portfolio. And what's so great about this and why it won was that we have this really beautiful illustrated lineup up here in the upper left, of the croquis, which is what we call the little models. And then we have, her draping exercises on the bottom, her pattern making exercises there. And then she's taken it to a professional level photo shoot where she's actually fabricated the garment. So we see it go from 2D to 3D. And being able to carry an idea across a lot of different medium, or being able to carry an idea across painting, that is something that we feel is really, really successful. So that's something that might help you be successful. Okay, we're almost done. So just remember some of these helpful tips. Cropping, make sure there's no shadows. Your cell phone reflections is something we see a lot. Make sure you crop out the binder rings if you do decide to use a piece that came out of your sketchbook. I see fingers and toes a lot, holding the pieces, or maybe you're taking a picture in your bare feet, or you're in sandals underneath, and I can see your feet. Try to crop those out because you really, again, want to take your work seriously. You want to, show us that you can be professional, because that's what people who graduate from SCAD are professional. We have a 99% employment rate, and 92% of our students are working in the creative fields in places like Disney and Samsung and all these amazing Fortune 500 and 100 companies. So we definitely want you to show us that you're about being professional when you come to us. Avoid cliches. These are things that we get too much of, and so we're automatically going to kind of have. I'm not going to say we're going to give it a bad score, but we're going to kind of, compare it to millions of other versions of it. Okay, so eyeballs is the number one thing. If you have eyeballs in your portfolio, or any kind of eye related artwork, we get so much of it that if you haven't found a way to show eyes that is completely different, I would recommend not using it. Phone type selfie pictures, we're getting a lot of using Adobe Illustrator, just creating vector art straight over pictures and calling it digital illustration. Those get zeros basically because there's no real drawing talent required there. Flowers, pets, pictures of babies or engagement photos or things like that don't really fit within the fine art kind of portfolio sort of category, and we get too much of it. Sunsets and beaches and gridded work, just think, is it something that we've never seen before as an original? If you can ask yourself those two questions, does it tell a story? Then it's something that probably should go in there. Think about what you would put up in a gallery. Unfinished work, we really discourage it, but we understand in these times that the pandemic, maybe you have artwork that is left at school or at your your tutor if you have an art tutor, or it's in a different location and you maybe can't access it. So only kind of this year unfinished work is something that we will tolerate a little bit more, but just make sure that just finish the work. If you have the ability to do so, finish it. Maybe consider editing it out if it's not finished. And don't plagiarize, obviously, is that last piece. Make sure you give credit where credit is due. So this is our portfolio review process. And it's important to note here that every college has a different portfolio review process. So you apply, which you log into SCAD, and then once you apply to SCAD at scad.edu/apply, and you would work with Robert, obviously would be your advisor through this process. Then you would go to scad.slideroom.com. Slideroom is a third-party website that helps us organize and host a portfolio. You would create an account. You would pick undergraduate 2021 as your category, and then you would start to upload your work into your own portfolio. So just pick your very best work as a reminder. We receive the portfolio once you click submit. We review it. Right now we're in the peak season for portfolios. There's about 150 portfolios waiting for me after I finish this presentation. And we send it out to the portfolio review board, and we kind of go through it, and we score it based on the merits that we talked about, that pie. Remember the pie. And then we assign it to, we let the advisor know what the scholarship is. It is tagged to a scholarship. It is added to your academic and achievement awards. So academic, we look at your grades. If you're above a 3.0 cumulative GPA, you're going to be eligible for an academic scholarship. Your achievement scholarship is actually twofold. So the big part of it is the portfolio, which we just talked about, but it's also a resume of accomplishment. And resume is a fancy word, a list of achievements, basically. Anything positive that's happened in your last 4 years of your high school career, you put that with your portfolio to get the maximum amount of scholarship that you're eligible for. So your advisor will contact you. They stay in touch with you throughout this whole process. I like to say that they're your admission Yoda or Gandalf. They kind of guide you through everything. And so they're amazing. Robert is one of those fabulous people. These were the different portfolio types. Today we talked about visual art because over 80% of the portfolios we receive are visual art, and it's the most universally accepted portfolio. But these are other types of portfolios that we'll accept as well. You can submit visual and time-based media. So time-based being film or animation or sound design. We actually teach sound design here. So you could put some of your artwork and then some of your movies or animations or music into a particular portfolio. That's an option. Just a basic time-based media, which is if you're a filmmaker, you could put together a demo reel or a 5-minute clip from one of your movies or one of your animations. If you're a writer, we actually accept writing. Everybody writes. So 5 to 15 pages of any genre of writing. And I mean any genre. I've read research papers, I've read poetry, song lyrics, scripts, so many scripts. And so everything is an option there for writing. Performing arts, you could do monologues, or you can do a monologue with a vocal solo or a solo dance. But it's important they have to be solo. The monologue has to be you against a blank background like me, and not you in like a play or something going on real time. And then last but not least, we actually have one of the most dominant equestrian programs in the US, maybe in the world. We won many national championships. And so you may submit a professional equestrian riding portfolio. Perhaps you're an English style rider, hunter jumper. You can actually put that into your portfolio for SCAD. That can be your portfolio for SCAD, and you can join the team. So this is the all-important screen. I would like for you to take a picture, take a screenshot if you're watching this on your iPad or your phone, and put my email down, because I am actually going to allow you to reach out to me, and we can set up a one-on-one appointment, or reach out to Robert, obviously, as well, and he will put you in touch with me. I'd like to go through your portfolio slide by slide with you and help you to pick the best type of portfolio to submit to SCAD to help you have the best success. I really appreciate you taking the time today to learn a little bit more about the portfolio process, to learn about, putting together visual art and what comprises good art and what are we looking for. So with that, I would say thank you, and I will turn it back over to Robert.
Well, thank you so much for imparting your wisdom, and I hope that was useful for everyone here. I just wanted to re-emphasize something that Will said, and also maybe translate something, which is that I think a lot of students make a mistake, honestly, with the admission process. The number one mistake students make is that they get everything together, right? They get everything ready, quote unquote, and then they start the application process. And this just totally wastes a lot of our resources that we have available to you, one of which is Will. So I know many of you who are watching this may be at a British curriculum school, and I know how those universities work. So just to kind of explain how SCAD works a little bit, we are happy to be relational, and we are happy to get to know you, and we are happy to give you some insight into what successful students have done in the past. And so I really do encourage you to take advantage of Will providing his contact, and also myself providing my contact. And you know, you can see behind me, there's my bass and my music. This is my life, right? So when I went to college, I picked out my schools and I met the bass teacher that I was going to have at every school if I got in. And I made sure to know if that was, you know, what is going on here and how can I be successful applying. So that's what we're trying to do here, is also help you, you know, show us your best cards and show us your best side. So please take advantage of that. And again, if you're watching this anywhere near the date that it's being recorded, then you have a little less than 1 week to submit your application for the SCAD challenge. And just the last detail about the SCAD challenge, the first thing the SCAD challenge is going to require is a fresh application to SCAD. So in the chat there, you see scad.edu/apply. That is where the application is. And this is what, you guys, there's no reason not to complete your application today, because I'm even going to give you a promo code. Merry Christmas. Happy birthday to me. Tomorrow's my birthday. I'm turning 30. And so this is for, thank you. So anybody watching today, this is your exclusive birthday present from me to you. And please let me know if there's anything I can assist with. And I'm going to, oh, thank you, Lena. And so I'm going to pass it off, Lena, if you have any closing words. Thank you so much for having us this morning. It's always a pleasure to be in the UAE in the winter time. I'm imagining the beautiful weather you must be having this time of year.
Hey, Robert, it's amazing weather up until March, so we're very, very lucky. We're also very lucky to have you and Will support our students in putting together amazing portfolio. That presentation was extremely comprehensive. We really appreciate your time, and it will certainly be very helpful for our students. And, you know, you've showed the multifaceted ways that they can put together a very creative piece that's holistic, and sharing the tips of what you look for is awesome, especially, you know, when you talked about the toes and the fingers and
right.
the reflection of the phone. Yeah, that is not very well polished now, is it? So we really, really appreciate your time and the tips you've shared with us and the presentation. Thank you, and we look forward to our next session with you guys.
Absolutely, our pleasure.
Thanks, Lena. Great to be here. See you soon.
Thank you, Robert. You're the best. Thank you. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.